Hello, welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto. Today we're going to talk about what is probably the most requested question or topic I've had thrown at me in quite some time, and that is when you're shopping at Walmart or Costco or Sam's Club and you're about to leave the building, they ask to see the receipt to prove that you bought what you're taking out of the building. Can they do that? What is the law on this? What if you were to refuse? These and other questions have been asked, and it's funny because this is actually a hot topic. And I never would have thought of this as such a hot topic because number one, I'll admit I'm not a member of Sam's Club or Costco. I've been in them with other people who were members, but I've been asked for a receipt before walking out of a Best Buy. Last time I bought something big at Best Buy, as I was walking out the door, the guy walked over, said, let me see the receipt, glanced at the receipt, and I walked out. It didn't bother me that much, but I've had people tell me they get stopped at Walmart, and I don't spend a lot of time in Walmart either. There's another grocery store I go to that's closer to my house. But I've been in a Walmart before, and I've had people say, no, Walmart is one of those hit or miss things. Some of them do it, some of them don't. But it's one of these questions, I guess, is that you just spent a lot of money in a store, and you are walking out to your car, thinking this transaction is done, and somebody walks up and says, "May I see your receipt?" And underlying that, I guess, is the natural feeling that somebody's accusing you of something. Like, you don't trust me? Do you think I stole something? But they tend to do it to everybody. At least the places I've been at literally check every single person as they went out the door. So there's a couple different ways of looking at this, but the first thing you have to realize is that the store is a private entity. It is not the government. So a lot of people want to start thinking in terms of constitutional issues. Does somebody have the right to detain you? Do they have the right to search you? Do they have the right to seize you? These are all things that the federal government has put restrictions on the actions of government actors. And of course, that applies to states now as well, but that's again state actions. So, a police officer walking up and questioning you is very different than a greeter at Walmart or a bag check person at Costco or whatever you want to call these people. So, first of all, don't even think about constitutional issues because the transaction we're talking about, which is you being in a store, purchasing things and walking out and having an employee of the store ask you, "May I see the proof of purchase?" That's not a government action. So the constitutional issues don't arise here. So the next question is, of course, what right do they have? Well, there's going to be a division here because some of the stores I'm talking about are membership clubs. So Sam's Club, okay? To shop at Sam's Club, you've got to join the club and pay some dues and agree to some rules. And I don't have a copy of the rules with me because I'm not a member of the club, but I've heard, after research I did on the internet, that Sam's Club specifically has rules in there that says that they can do this, and if you don't like their rules, you don't have to join the club. I haven't joined the club. Sam's Club has not offended me by asking to search my bag because I've never shopped there because I'm not a member, okay? I've been with people who are shopping there, but I've never shopped there. So they've never offended me. And if I were to join the club and they asked to see my bag and that's part of the rights and rules of that club, you got to put up with those rules. And if you don't like those rules, either ask them to change the rules or get out of the club, okay? So when it comes to the shopping clubs that ask you to do this, if it's in their rules, they have the right to ask you to do it, and there's nothing you can say about it, really. I mean, you can complain. You can say, "I think this is bad business for you guys." And they're going to say, "Well, we are also interested in keeping our costs down, and we're trying to eliminate what we call inventory shrinkage or loss, and that is people stealing stuff. And if you aren't stealing stuff, congratulations, but we're trying to help you because when we catch someone else stealing stuff and we can put the stuff back on our shelves and maybe make this person go away, it won't drive up your costs when you shop here." So that's what they're going to tell you. So that's with the shopping clubs. Now, what about the non-shopping clubs? The places that just have their doors open to the public, come on in and shop. You go in there, you look at the price on a product, you go, "I want to buy that product." You take the product up to the counter, and you either have a cashier scan it or you scan it yourself, depending on your thoughts on that. And then you pay the money. You get a little piece of paper, and that transaction is complete. You now own this thing that you just bought with this money. As you're walking towards the door, an employee of the store stops you and says, "May I see your receipt?" Now, at that moment in time, and this is interesting, I found attorneys on the internet who said, "Just keep walking. Just keep walking." What are they going to do? Tackle you? Well, that's an interesting thing because you then get into a gray area. And you say, "But wait a second, Steve, what right does the store have to even challenge me at that moment in time. And I'll tell you that the reason they have the right to challenge you is a law called the shopkeeper's privilege. And this will vary from state to state, but I checked, and many states have got this. Look it up on the internet, double check your state. But in Michigan, it's actually not called shopkeeper's privilege, but it's MCL 62917. It's part of our revised Judicature Act. And basically, what the law says, and I'll read it to you so you don't think I'm making this stuff up, but a shopkeeper has the right to detain you if they reasonably suspect and do believe that you have stolen something. So you cannot sue a merchant or a library. By the way, this applies to libraries for any conduct arising from a person suspected of removing or of attempting to remove without right or permission goods held for sale in a store or library materials from a library. If the merchant, library agent, or independent contractor had probable cause for believing and did believe that the person had committed or aided or abetted in the larceny of goods held for sale or of library books and so on, and then damages for or resulting from mental anguish or punitive, exemplary, or aggravated damages shall not be allowed a plaintiff unless it is proved that the merchant, library agent, or so on used unreasonable force, detained the plaintiff an unreasonable length of time, acted with unreasonable disregard of the plaintiff's rights or sensibilities, or acted with intent to injure the plaintiff. So let's suppose you're walking up the door and the person says, may I look in your bag? And you go, no. Well, the merchant's agent could say, the fact that you wouldn't let me look in your bag leads me to believe that you may have stolen something, and I believe you did steal something. So stay here while I call the cops. Now, you might not stay there while they call the cops, but of course they'll follow you out to your car, get your license number, and call the police. The police are going to show up and get involved, and who knows what's going to happen at that point. Now, here's the thing I like to tell people. There are arguments and fights, not physical fights, but confrontations you can get into, that you might win somewhere down the road. The question always is it worth pursuing something? If you're going to win something, it's going to be such a pain in the rear end. It's not worth winning. Do you really want the police coming out to your house saying, hey, we need you to come back to the store with us, bring your bag, bring your receipt, and we're going to figure out whether or not you're a shoplifter and figure out why you wouldn't stop. And we're going to watch some tape. And we're going to sit there and watch a bunch of tapes of you walking around the store and what you put in your bag and so on. Are you going to win that argument? Probably, especially if you didn't steal anything. But the point is it really that difficult to say, sure, look in my bag? Okay? So I know that you're saying, Steve, but there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to this. Well, there could be more to this. And I'll give you an example. Let's suppose they didn't ask every single person, let's look in your bag. But they only stopped women. We inspect the bag of every single woman walking through here. But we don't inspect the men's. Or we pick a race. We're going to play the race card. They pick a race. I'm not going to say which race. They just pick a race. And say every single one of those people that walks through here, we're going to check their bag. No one else. Or we're going to pick on short people. It's a Randy Newman song. Every single short person that walks by, we're going to check their bag. Believe it or not, all of the things I just described to you violate the law in Michigan called the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. And many states have got their own civil rights acts that add often protections that weren't found otherwise at the state level, or possibly weren't even offered at the federal level at the time. And the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act prohibits a bunch of things in a bunch of different settings, one of which is what merchants can and cannot do. And they cannot treat their customers differently based on race, color, age, height, weight, I kid you not, and a bunch of other things. But the point is that you have to treat everyone the same. So if the person who's checking the bags at the door is checking the bags of every single person, they're not breaking this law. They're not breaking that law, okay? Now, if they did, that's another story altogether. But let's suppose you're just a person, say the 10 people in front of you, 10 people behind you, they checked all 21 people. They checked the receipts. 10 in front, 10 in back, plus you is 21. They're going to say, well, we've got the right to do this, and it's shopkeeper's privilege. And the thinking is that you walked into the store without whatever is in your bag, and you're walking out with whatever is in your bag. And they just simply want to check to see if it matches the receipt. And if it matches the receipt, no problem. But if you don't want to show it to them, why would that be? Are you hiding something? So while researching this, I came across a fascinating case, and I'm not saying this case is necessarily indicative of what is going to happen in any given case. But this is a true case, and the case was published by the Michigan, I'm sorry, it was unpublished. Later, I will explain that nuance to you because it's one of the things that annoys me the most about the law in Michigan. But the Michigan Court of Appeals put out an opinion, unpublished, March of 2012. And it's a case called Sarah Stoliker versus Kohl's Department Store. And Sarah Stoliker filed a lawsuit against Daryl Duncan, who is a loss prevention supervisor for Kohl's. And this is a fact that they admitted. Plaintiff shoplifted from Kohl's. She stole something from Kohl's. And Duncan, who is an employee of Kohl's, pursued her into the parking lot. A tussle ensued. A tussle ensued. That is the quote from the case. A tussle ensued, during which plaintiff tripped or fell, or was pushed, and she broke her collarbone. Plaintiff sued defendants for assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, and negligent hiring and training. And again, the facts of the case are she stole something, made it to the parking lot, where a confrontation occurred between her and a security person. And in that confrontation, she fell to the ground and broke her collarbone. And so she sued Kohl's for the physical injuries that resulted from her falling and breaking her collarbone. And the trial court threw her case out, and that was upheld by the Court of Appeals. And they point out that the shopkeeper's privilege doesn't necessarily protect admitted shoplifters. It's just designed to protect people who are accused of shoplifting, but accused wrongfully of shoplifting. And there's another concept in the law that says that you cannot benefit from your own wrongdoing. And I'm not going to read the whole case because there's actually a lengthy opinion. But the trial court determined that the wrongful conduct rule barred plaintiff's claims. The rule is a common law doctrine that precludes a plaintiff from maintaining an action that is based in whole or in part on the plaintiff's own wrongful conduct. So the thinking is, if she hadn't gone into the store that day to steal something, she wouldn't have been in the confrontation in the parking lot where she got her collarbone broken. But, again, I'm not saying shoplifters deserve to have their collarbones broken. I'm merely pointing out that that's the harsh reality of the law shining down on somebody who is accused of shoplifting. So, again, when you're in the store, can they ask you for the receipt? Well, of course they can, but can they force you to show it to them? If you're in a membership club where you pay dues and agree to rules, you probably have to according to those rules. And if you refuse, they can probably kick you out of the club. Then you ask yourself, which is more important to me, my righteous indignation or my belonging in the club where I'll save some money. But if we're talking about the non-clubs where anybody can walk in the door and buy stuff and then walk out the door, they have the right to ask, as long as they're not doing it in a discriminatory fashion, they have the right to ask. And then the question boils down to, do you really want to make that stand be the one that you fight over? Because if you say no and you'll keep walking, they might say, gee, that's unusual behavior for somebody who hasn't stolen something. I'm going to try to detain that person without a breach of the peace. And if I can't detain them, I'm going to get their license plate and have a police officer drag them back here so we can straighten this all out. And you might win that argument, but will it be worth your time and trouble? Probably not. So here's the question again. Can they ask for it and can they can they force you to show it to them? Probably. But again, this is the kind of thing where I honestly think if this offends people, instead of taking your time and harassing the person who's asking you, because that's their job, maybe you walk over to the manager and say, I just want to let you know, I'm going on record here. I'm a good client. I buy a lot of stuff. I'm a good customer. And every time I get asked, did I steal something today and I'm treated like a shoplifter, it annoys me. Just letting you know that. And if enough people checked in and said that, maybe they'd reconsider it. But I have a sneaky feeling that they've probably done studies. And their studies probably show that this saves them money. So that's the answer. They probably can. Otherwise, questions or comments, as always, fire my way. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.